Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Waihiga K. Muturi, and I'll be hosting the first ever, I repeat, the first ever digital ACCER Awards this year. And we welcome all of you, and we are willing and able to actually have you be hosted live, because we are currently live on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and YouTube. Let me not forget that. And I'm your English co-host. My name is Waihiga K. Muturi, with my fellow French co-host, please.
Merci beaucoup, Waihiga. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Je m'appelle Oyugi Caroline et aujourd'hui, je suis votre modératrice. Je vais accompagner Waihiga dans cette animation et comme il a dit, nous venons en direct de Nairobi et nous sommes là sur Facebook, Twitter, Instagram et YouTube où vous pouvez nous suivre pendant toute cette cérémonie. Bienvenue.
We are joining you today in Nairobi, Kenya, the city of the sun, as we call it. So please, welcome. Remember to go on our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But before I forget, also YouTube. And the first question for the day is, what comes to mind when you think about climate change? What do you think about that, Carol?
Un petit rappel. Il vient de dire simplement que nous sommes toujours sur YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, donc Facebook, il faut nous suivre. Et la question avec laquelle on commence aujourd'hui, c'est qu'est-ce qui vous vient à l'esprit quand on parle du changement climatique? Donc, notez vos idées, notez vos pensées dans le chat là-bas, parce que nous sommes direct de Nairobi.
Without further ado, we go to our first speaker, Mr. Better yet, Dr. Milika Mwenda, the Executive Director of PACJA, Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance.
Sans tarder, nous allons écouter notre toute première intervention. Effectivement, notre intervention principale qui sera prononcée par le directeur exécutif de PACJA, lui-même le Dr. Milika Mwenda. Bienvenue.
It gives me pleasure to invite everyone, to the 5th edition of the African Climate Change and Environmental Reporting Awards ceremony, and start by thanking all those who have contributed to its success, starting with the PACJA Secretariat, the journalists who submitted their entries, the awards committee, the judges, our partners, and all stakeholders. As you may be aware, this exercise could have been concluded last year and actually could have been a physical exercise, but due to the COVID-19 disruption, milestones had to be delayed. 2020 was the year we did not have a choice but to stay indoors, isolated, and socially distanced. Many of us wished that the year could have been written off. All in all, we may have been right, albeit only to some extent. All said and done, however, we triumphed. Heroes and heroines have emerged, including the winners and runners-up of this all-important award scheme. We changed tactics in tackling the pandemic through various ways, including embracing technology. Amid the lockdowns and restrictions occasioned by the pandemic, PACJA in July 2020 launched the 5th edition of the ACCER Awards process, starting with our webinar on climate change reporting in times of crisis. That saw the participation of at least 170 journalists and stakeholders from across the world. During the webinar, journalists, among other things, figured out how their work would be part of making climate action a way of life, and saw the silver lining in a year that was proving to be dark and ugly. All across Africa, there were interesting, uplifting, eye-opening, and informative stories on climate action. And so, what is there to learn from the entries we received in the ACCER Awards competition? First and foremost, there is an immense talent among journalists which can be tapped to continue spreading the word on climate and making the environment we live in better. As we went through the entries submitted, some of which did not make it to the top because of the competitive nature of the awards scheme, we were reminded that the climate crisis is not only an elephant in the room for Africa, but the entire world. We can no longer afford to discuss it in low tones or restrict it to a back burner. We have to act and be purposeful about it. We also deemed a spot gap and are convinced that journalists still requires continuous capacity building to understand how to package information about climate change, to show how intertwined it is with our day-to-day lives, politics, economy, food, energy sources and use, health, and generally not just our existence, but that of the entire universe and the planet. We purpose to continue filling this gap through ACCER Awards as well as ACCER Awards Finalist Academy for the purposes of this capacity building, all of which their frequency will build more capacity among journalists and encourage necessary attention towards climate change. We will continue encouraging and supporting initiatives that provide journalists and media networks to build and share knowledge on climate change, notably the Pan-African Media Alliance on Climate Change, which has brought together all ACCER Awards alumni since the scheme was founded in 2013. We are glad, due to our journalists' ability to write stories that inspire and appeal sectors that matter for Africa and its people. Water safety, energy sources, land use and planning, pollution, damage of useful infrastructure, lacking capacity in the handling of natural resources, agribusiness, SMEs, conservation, or living side by side with nature were most highlighted within the submissions. Through the stories, we were able to see the power journalists wield. They can change the world, for better or for worse. We see an unconscious effort to right the wrongs, and which we must nurture. We see genuineness and yes cries that play a vital role in PACJA's push for climate justice. It is possible to reverse the effects of climate change and other crises, including the COVID-19, but only if everyone plays their role in making the universe a better place to live. Nature can do without humans, but humans cannot do without nature. Today, we unveil at least 25 winners and finalists in various categories of ACCER Awards 5th edition in both English and French. We will endeavor to have the entries submitted in more languages in future, including Arabic and Kiswahili, opening up space for greater varied competition and categories. At national and subnational levels, including deep into communities where action is waged by people at the front line of climate crisis, we will model ACCER Awards scheme to suit their needs, including introducing categories in vernacular languages which are understood by majority of local people. Let me end by once again congratulating this year's overall winner, runners as well as the finalists in the several other categories, and thank all those who submitted entries to the edition. Alone, we can't win this war, but together with you, we are a formidable force to combat climate crisis. Thank you very much and welcome.
I can see a few charts. Let me start with Anna McKenna, and she says, amazing stuff you guys are doing, and it's brilliant that we've come this far.
Anne McKenna déjà communique à travers Facebook et elle disait vraiment je vois un travail formidable, vous faites un bon travail, voilà comment il faut avancer.
And last but not least, I would like to mention also Yusra Mwangi, who says, how exactly can I join the ACCER Awards?
Et Yusra Mwangi qui nous pose une question très très importante. Comment est-ce que je peux faire partie de ce prix ACCER?
And we go to our first keynote speaker, Emmanuel Wongire, Deputy Director, Cameroon Radio TV.
Et à ce point-ci, nous allons écouter une autre intervention qui viendra cette fois-ci de Emmanuel Wongibe. Il vient du Cameroun. Il est le directeur adjoint de Cameroon Radio Television.
The selection committee of the ACCER Awards 2020 is indebted to the organizer, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA, for having associated us with this laudable initiative. As chairman of the selection team, I feel a sense of gratitude for the unique opportunity to have met so many African journalists through their works in the print, on radio, on television, and on various digital platforms. Decades ago, the story of the environment and today climate change was told largely by colleagues from other parts of the world. Even with the best of intentions, they told the African environment story from a perspective and with a baggage that is theirs. This was perceived either as too sophisticated or mundane an issue for our feeble minds or our less civilized attention. As one of those who boarded the environmental reporting train in those early years, the hundreds of entries that we went through, each literally tickled me into a series of giggles. Nothing to do with the quality of any report or article. I was simply overwhelmed by the joy of the sheer numbers, the depth and the breadth, and the pointedness of some of the entries we received. Yes, Africans are owning and domesticating climate change reporting. And how could you have expected me to be indifferent to this positive development? To each and everyone who answered the call for this award, we say thank you for joining the race. To the finalists and the winners of the ACCER Awards 2020, accept the congratulations of the selection team. Your work stood out from among many because of its unique perspective, its highly innovative approach, and professionalism. Enjoy your achievement. As you do so, may the joy that comes with it spur you into greater commitment to an area of journalistic endeavor that is begging for more attention. The stakes could not have been higher for this is about our survival as a people. Thank you.
On to the first category, we begin with Radio English. And the second runners-up is Onyango, I hope I didn't say that differently, Nkoma, who is a Malawian journalist who works for Zodiac broadcasting station ZBS. He's aged 30. And Onyango, prior to joining ZBS, worked as a high school teacher at Mtendere Christian Academy from September 2016 to May 2018. He is fluent in English and Chichewe.
Donc, dans cette première catégorie qui est radio en anglais, nous avons notre deuxième finaliste qui s'appelle Onyango Nkoma, qui vient du Malawi. Donc, M. Nkoma a de l'expérience dans le domaine du journalisme, l'éducation. Il a été lauréat d'autres compétitions ou concours à partir même de 2016 jusqu'à 2018. Et juste pour vous donner une idée, sa présentation cette fois, c'était sur les conséquences que les gens dans le parti est de Doha ont connues ou leur expérience quand ils partagent des sources d'eau avec les animaux.
Merci. And still under the first runners-up, still under Radio English, we have our first runners-up, Victor Faison from Malawi. Victor was born in 06, or better yet, 6th January 1994. He works with Chisomo radio station in Malawi as head of presentation department and a reporter at the same station. Now, when it comes to who was actually named in 2018 as under 21st Capital Bank Best Sports Presenter in the category of community radios in Malawi. Faison is currently studying diploma in journalism online with the Allison Academy.
Ah bon, donc toujours dans la même catégorie de radio en anglais, nous avons notre première finaliste maintenant qui est Victor Faison, toujours du même pays de Malawi. Né en 1994, il travaille avec la station ou la chaîne radiophonique qui s'appelle Chisomo et où il est présentateur. Et en 2018, lui aussi, il a été promu pour devenir le chef du département de présentation. Et il a fait une présentation en collaboration avec quelqu'un d'autre que nous allons nommer, mais leur travail ou leur présentation était sur la mise en œuvre graduelle des lois pour la protection de l'environnement.
On to the same category, which is Radio English, we have our first runners-up, Mfatso Mkumfa, who is a journalist trained by the University of Malawi, the Polytechnic, and holds a BA, which is a diploma in journalism. He worked with a private media house and the best media house in Malawi, namely Zodiac Broadcasting Station, ZBS, on internship. Currently, he's a volunteer at Chisomo radio station located in the central region of Malawi. But better yet, why he deserves this award is because it's his vision to contribute to the international community by denouncing bad acts that contribute to the impoverishment of the environment and therefore to climate change in general. A deserving first runners-up we have here.
Pour terminer notre liste de premières finalistes, nous avons Mfatso Mkumfa qui travaillait, comme j'avais dit, en collaboration avec Victor Faison. Nous sommes toujours dans le même pays du Malawi et notre finaliste a une licence en journalisme. Il a travaillé avec des groupes privés, médiatiques et maintenant il se trouve à Zodiac Broadcasting Station où il a fait un stage. Pour le moment, il travaille à titre volontaire avec Chisomo Radio Station qui est située dans la partie centrale du pays. Quelle est sa vision? Vraiment, il aimerait contribuer à tout ce qui peut réduire ou dénoncer des mauvaises activités qui contribuent à à la réduction de la qualité de vie et aussi de l'environnement dans son pays, c'est-à-dire qu'il vise travailler directement avec les gens qui s'occupent du changement climatique.
And on to the winner of this category, which is Radio English, we have Labeja Simon Peter from Uganda. He's the winner of this award. Well deserved, sir. Peter Labeja is an award-winning investigative journalist for the Ugandan multimedia company, The New Vision. He has 15 years of professional experience and has received 2 of his climate change and environment reporting awards in prestigious and highly coveted journalism competitions under the Ugandan National Journalism Awards and ACCER Awards, which leads me to remind you it's his second time actually winning this, which is amazing. And for Labeja's international working tour includes the 2014 Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC, which is actually the COP, in Lima, Peru, and the St. Petersburg Climate Dialogue 2015 in Berlin, Germany. Well deserved, well deserved.
Et maintenant, pour le gagnant de cette catégorie, des présentations en radio, en anglais, nous avons une présentation qui est venue de l'Ouganda. La personne qui va gagner ça ici, ce n'est pas sa première fois, ce n'est pas sa première victoire, c'est la deuxième fois qu'il est vainqueur ici. Et on parle maintenant de Peter Simon Labeja, qui a plus de 15 ans d'expérience professionnelle dans le journalisme. Donc, à part le travail qu'il fait directement, il a aussi participé dans les conférences, des ateliers, des rencontres internationaux, y compris en 2014, la conférence des partis, c'est-à-dire COP, qui a eu lieu à Lima, au Pérou. Et en 2015, il faisait partie de la délégation qui était à Berlin, en Allemagne. Donc, sa présentation, cette fois-ci, était intitulée « L'énergie des larmes ». Félicitations, Simon Peter de l'Ouganda.
Please remember, comment on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even on Twitter. We want to hear from you, and I can already see several charts, starting with Agustin, who says bien for the Francophone participants. Thank you very much for that. And we have Kamau, who also says amazing stuff from these winners. At least I know Labeja, and that's a brilliant move once again. Congratulations.
Donc, tout en félicitant ce premier groupe de gagnants, on vous rappelle que nous sommes toujours en contact avec vous à travers nos médias sociaux. Déjà, il y a plein de commentaires qui viennent, mais il y a quelqu'un ici qui maintenant fait vraiment la pouce là pour dire c'est bien ce que vous faites. Et il y a quelqu'un ici aussi qui connaît personnellement le gagnant Labeja, Peter, et il dit que Peter, je suis très fier de toi. Merci.
Proceeding to our second keynote speaker, Juliet Biao, who is the Director and Regional Representative for Africa at the UNEP. Please take over, ma'am.
Donc, pour cette deuxième partie, nous allons écouter une intervention de Juliette Biao qui nous vient en direct des Nations Unies, et il a évidemment quelque chose d'important à partager avec nous.
First of all, I would like to thank the Pan-African Climate Change Justice Alliance for inviting me today. Thank you for organizing the Pan-African Climate Change and Environment Reporting Award. Chers journalistes, c'est un honneur et un plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui. The United Nations Environment Programme is pleased to see this award at its 5th version, despite all the challenges posed by the health crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution add up to the three self-inflicting planetary crises that are closely interlinked and put the well-being of the future and current generation at an acceptable risk. The world has failed to meet its commitment to limit environmental damage. Emissions are 62% higher now than when the international negotiation on climate change began in 1990. None of the global goals for protecting life on Earth and to limit the degradation of land and ocean has been fully met. Deforestation and overfishing continue, and 1 million species of plants and animals are threatened with extinction. Even as we scrolled to our news feeds in fear of COVID-19, year 2020 was breaking with even 2016 as the hottest year since records began. As the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, and I quote, "Humanity is waging war with nature," unquote. The consequences of our recklessness are already apparent in the suffering of humanity, the towering of economies, and the acceleration of the erosion of life on Earth. The good news is that the low carbon neutrality can generate up to 26 trillion US dollars and create over 65 million jobs by 2030. The nations have adopted the historic Paris Agreement and commit to lower the global warming to 2 degrees Celsius and to pursue the 1.5 degrees Celsius, but only commitment and promises are not enough. We need to see this commitment and promises translated into concrete action to save our planet. As I conclude, let me pass on the following key messages. As we address the climate crisis, we're facing 3 imperatives. First, we need to achieve global carbon neutrality in the next 3 decades. Second, we have to align global finance behind the Paris Agreement. And third, we must deliver a breakthrough on climate change adaptation to protect the world from the impact of the climate change, especially poor and vulnerable communities in the developing world. These key messages need to be amplified to engage policymakers, civil society, the private sector, and communities to act together. You, as journalists, you have a key role to play in amplifying those messages. Simplify them. Break them down into basic messages that can touch the heart and the minds of people to act. Chers journalistes, la balle est dans votre camp. C'est vous qui devez porter ce message pour vraiment stimuler une action commune autour des changements climatiques. Nous comptons vraiment sur vous. Et le programme des Nations Unies pour l'environnement sera toujours là pour vous aider à accomplir cette noble tâche. Le temps de l'action est là maintenant. Ou nous agissons, ou nous échouerons. Et je compte sur vous pour accomplir cette noble tâche. Je vous remercie.